Thanks again for joining us for the Financial Services Digital Leader Series with TD Ameritrade. Now I'd like to hand the session over to your moderator, Chris Young, Industry Strategy and Marketing Financial Services. Chris, you now have the floor.
Heather, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to our ongoing Financial Services Digital Leader Series. Today we are joined by not one, but three members of TD Ameritrade, and we have an exciting discussion ahead of us. What I want to do is just provide, before we get started, by the way, let me introduce myself. If you don't know me, I'm Christopher Young. I'm the Director of Industry Strategy and Marketing for Financial Services. I'm joined with, again, as I said before, three members of TD Ameritrade, and let's start with you, Chris. We'll go in order and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your role at TD Ameritrade.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Shout out to my ex-colleagues at MetLife who are all joining in mass too. My name is Chris Kienle. I am the Managing Director and Head of Marketing Technology and Innovation at TD Ameritrade, which is really just a large umbrella for meaning I have a lot of different hats that I wear. So among my responsibilities, I have the team that is responsible for our TDAmeritrade.com marketing site, as well as our digital marketing team, our digital analytics team, our marketing technology team, and our retail online account opening team. It may seem like a cacophony of sound, but actually it all comes together really nicely, and hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate that on today's presentation. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Deanna Pagano, and I'm a director reporting to Chris Kienle on the marketing technology and analytics team. And my role sits sort of more squarely on the data side. I have a number of data product owners reporting to me, as well as a team of project managers and scrum masters.
Great. And I'm Aaron Lessmann. I'm Director of Digital Marketing and Global Web Strategy. Key pieces of my world are overseeing TDAmeritrade.com, the digital experience there, and then also overseeing a lot of the digital capabilities that make that all possible. So GMS, testing, personalization, and then also SEO. And I'm clearly a big fan of professional headshots. So just a little tidbit about me. Thanks.
I also appreciate how well branded your room is, so that was really well thought.
This is set decoration in the last 10 minutes, so thank you for notice.
Awesome. So let me just go through the agenda for the session that we have between now and the remainder of the hour. What I'm going to do is provide some context around, as I've done each time, is around the challenges that we face that we're trying to work through together. Ideally, that will help set up how TD Ameritrade solves for many of these challenges and continues to work through them, because it's never, an end state. We're always, continuing to evolve. And then we have time for Q&A at the end. I believe we will have time for Q&A at the end, but either way, I encourage you to ask questions along the way. I'm hoping to make this more interactive because we have, such a great panel of different speakers within the same organization. So let's start with some of the industry context. The journey that we've all been on, from day one in our working relationship between all of your companies and Adobe is this pursuit of experience, this pursuit of these omni-channel, cross-channel experiences that help your customers achieve meaningful outcomes, no matter what those are, whether that's opening up a new account or if they're service-related. In this environment, these experiences matter more than ever. However, as I've shown in sessions past, our ability or your ability or the responders' ability of the survey in financial services continue to struggle in terms of advancing their CX strategy. We've shown something like this over time, and this is something where, the aspiration was to go from not very advanced to advanced, but there's a 3 to 5 year roadmap to get there. This is no longer an aspiration. This is now a necessity. This is a destination that we all have to get to almost immediately, because I assure you those in that 49% of not very advanced to immature are struggling in this environment. And interestingly, the way that we've looked at this is the combination or the alignment between the CX strategy and the technology that enables that. So how well are these things connected? And that's how we're deeming the advancement of these different companies. So out of curiosity, let's go to a poll question, Heather. Let's just get a sense of those of you that are attending, where you fall or where you believe your company falls within this spectrum of advancing CX strategy. Okay, so what we're seeing is almost a similar distribution between the quite advanced and not very advanced. So this is, interestingly enough, very, very similar, heavily in the quite advanced, which is good. I think that's where we all should be as we work for our way to very advanced. I'm curious for the TD Ameritrade folks, at the start of your journey, where did you start within this spectrum, and then where do you believe you are now?
Yeah, since I think I'm the legacy person here. So I think we were definitely in the not very advanced, but I do think we had some pockets of some successes and momentum, which we'll get into a little bit more later. But I think we were smack in the not very advanced group.
And I'd say, Chris, Chris, I'd say, where are we now? I say this humbly because I think, there's always more work to be done. I think anybody who's on this journey knows this. But we have stepped into the very advanced phase. We are very early in the very advanced phase. But we've gotten to the point where, we've finally connected and stood up all the core capabilities that we've needed, with most recently, our CDP and our AI-based arbitration engine. And that was a big deal because we're really now able to start putting all of these capabilities together to start delivering things like scalable personalization. And that's something we've been chasing, like many people have been chasing for a really, really long time. And while I would say we're just in the process of really starting to get our momentum going in that very advanced stage, we're happy to say that we feel we've arrived.
Awesome. So definitely looking forward to getting into that discussion. So moving ahead, what is the result of these challenges, right? What are we trying to solve for ultimately? Each of you probably have or had sketches or schematics that reflect customer journeys. The challenge that we collectively have is that these journeys at times are lengthy, they move between channels, and they're being managed by systems that can see only a portion of the individual as they move between those distinct channels. So it's almost like the same person as they move along, only seeing a portion, and each way you're treating them differently. Why is this? Well, the starting point is always data, right? The idea that you have, again, even TD Ameritrade themselves, the business units that you have, the channels that you operate, that you've developed over time, whether they be physical locations, mobile applications, the data doesn't necessarily flow or connect to a single individual or profile. And that's why one of the top reasons that we've seen in our survey data, and I've asked this question at the last session, this still rose to the top, is that accessing the integrated shared view of customer data across the enterprise. That continues to rise to the top in terms of what's stopping me from meeting these customer needs. What follows, by the way, is, Chris, some of the things that you alluded to, those intelligent tools that enable proactive engagement, right? So it's not just responsive to, to a specific behavior, but your ability to anticipate them is where ultimately you want to be. On top of that, the use of marketing and digital technology, as an example, that the most responders from, no cloud-based technology to somewhat cloud-based to the highly integrated cloud-based stack, the majority still fall within the fragmented approach with inconsistent integrations. So I can't have central view of the data and understanding of the customer. And even if I did, the systems that actually, interact with the customer directly, whether it's paid media, email, site-based personalization, they don't talk to one another. So it's very difficult to, again, going through that journey and seeing the same person and treating them the same way. We asked the question in the same survey as well. What are the things that contributed to the success of advancing your enterprise-wide digital transformation? And I always use the term there's no silver bullet because all of these responses are close. And the reality is you're going to need all of them, in my opinion, to be successful. So the right organizational structures, which we're going to talk about today, and the use of potentially, in this case, Agile. Senior level support. senior level support that understands the challenges of digital. Not just, I get it's important. No, but I get what the challenges are and how to address them. Leadership that has a clear digital strategy and communicates it regularly. Evangelism, in my opinion, is critical. You got to constantly communicate what you're trying to do to get everyone on board. It's one thing to have the good technology infrastructure that you see last, but we see our customers skip the steps of training people in how to use those technologies, and how could you expect them to be successful in doing that. So let's poll, Heather, let's go to another poll. And I'm curious, for those of you on the call, where do you think the biggest impact would be to your digital transformation of the things that we've listed? All right, things are starting to even out, but as we transition to our panel discussion with the TD Ameritrade folks, you know, a couple things stand out. We can talk more about how the leadership within your company help, you know, drive those initiatives. And a lot of the times, you know, Chris and Deanna and Aaron, you might be working with executives that really don't understand, you know, what it is that you're trying to do. So I think education is going to be a key part of that. In addition, the regular communication of your strategy, this is something that you guys do. So without further ado, let's jump into your story and how you address some of these key challenges.
Great. So this is Aaron Lessmann again, Director of Digital Marketing. I'm going to jump in and paint a little bit of our starting point picture. You know, like many companies, this is true 8, 10, 12 years ago. It still was always centered around our strategy. You know, for us, our customers are our clients, so everything that we do is putting them first. But as we look back, you know, 8, 10, 12 years ago, while that wasn't different, what was different was just, you know, the sea of change of digital adoption and consumer preferences. You know, so that, you know, for us was a starting point of, you know, making sure we had a well-optimized, or just even that we had a mobile site, right? That we had a responsive experience for folks, that we could slightly send more relevant batch and blast communications, right? That was progress then. But also back then, you know, there was many, you know, honest and probably more frank discussions with some of our, you know, even sometimes partners within marketing and partners within technology, of lobbying for why it made sense for marketers to be allowed access to the CMS, right? Why we needed a deeper level of web analytics. I mean, those crazy concepts, right? You know, and you know, we had some small pockets of wins. You know, we experimented with new solutions that, you know, had crazy names like Omniture and Touch Clarity and Test and Target and all those, you know, really advanced solutions at the time. And we started to find, you know, very solid wins and key successes that I think we you know, we did our best to champion. And part of that was also, you know, recognizing that by empowering marketers with those capabilities, you know, you could really develop a pretty nice team. And I think, you know, my team, I was blessed with, you know, some really smart marketers and still am, to take those concepts, take those capabilities and run with them. But again, that was some small pockets, but we realized we needed to go bigger than that. So Chris will get into how that's, you know, evolved more into our current approach.
One question for you guys before you transition. If you look at some of these customer objectives on this slide, you know, as you went through this transformation, were there any areas that you focused on more specifically than others in terms of bringing in new customers, onboarding them, retaining them?
Yeah, I think for us, we were more advanced in the acquisition space, which probably for us, and it's different in, you know, for some companies. For us, it was probably some of the earlier ad tech that more spilled over into some of the own parts of marketing. And again, we'll get into how that's, you know, I think we've really upped our game in some other areas.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Okay, so when I joined TD Ameritrade, I initially started out on the technology side, heading up our digital platforms team. where I spent most of the first 4 years there redesigning and transforming our web and mobile trading platforms. When we got to the end of that road, I was looking for a new challenge, and I raised my hand and I said, I need a new challenge. And our CMO, who had newly become the CMO, recently was promoted, raised her hand back and said, why don't you go on over to marketing? And I thought it was interesting because, I didn't have a traditional marketing background, so I wasn't so sure why there was this eagerness to invite me over. But I think what I sensed was, I always had sensed that there was always this sort of push and pull, contentious relationship between technology and marketing. I'm sure none of you have experienced that anywhere where you work. It wasn't toxic, it wasn't bad, it wasn't optimized. There was just marketing, when I sat on the tech side of the house, it was like, why is marketing always complaining? Why do they always need the shiny new toy? Why don't they go make some commercials? Coming over to marketing in 2013, I got to see it from the other side. I listened to our CMO, I listened to our marketers, and, they were struggling to get their work prioritized. They had technology needs, and that work was not getting prioritized. We were focused very much on things like our trading platforms, naturally. There was a sense that tech wasn't listening to us, but that really wasn't true. I think it was really more of a language and a communication situation as I came to found it. And, of course, things take too long and things cost too much and, all the usual things that you hear. But it was clear that we needed a better way. And having come from technology, there was a sense that I could help improve that communication and help bridge that gap. And this is certainly not, this has not been possible through any kind of one-man job here. This has taken lots and lots of people to make this transformation work. I also want to point out, transformation often suggests that, the old way didn't work, it was broken, we have to fix it, that's not really the case here. We've always had, as Aaron said, strong marketers, talented marketers, we've had effective marketing, we've done well as a brand. It's about really kind of sitting down and saying, how can we maybe approach things differently? How do we try new things? How do we experiment? How do we think outside of the box and try new ways? Agile, for example, was something that was very popular in our technology group, but it was kind of unheard of in marketing unless you were a marketer working on a technology project for marketing. But we just needed a better way. And I think one of the places we started was to get away from this notion of asking for platforms and things and saying, hey, I need AEM. Because technology would say, you have a CMS. What do you need AEM for? You got everything you need. We really needed to change our communications to focus more on value and use cases that would explain how, if we make these investments in these new platforms or procedures or whatever it may be, training, how are we going to use it? What is it going to get us? What is the value? How does standing up a new capability translate to business value or greater client satisfaction? And that's a language that, people speak, in our company. The other big thing, and I can't stress this enough, is, we had a new CIO as well. And this is a CIO who really understood how important technology and data were to marketers. So we changed the way we spoke to each other. And for our part, we had to commit to results. We weren't just going to get a big check for tens of millions of dollars and a 5-year roadmap and not be able to come back and have something to show for it. So we had to be accountable for results over the course of this journey. And really, the approach was to start with what do we need and why do we need it? Like Aaron said, we had a lot of capabilities. It's not like we were starting from zero. But in some cases, our capabilities were antiquated, they were old, they were not user-friendly. And in other situations, we just had big, giant gaps in what we could do. And, folks like Aaron and his colleagues and my colleagues in marketing knew that these technologies could be game changers in terms of how effective we could be, how fast we could be. And we wanted to really shift the conversation to a better balance of not just the art of marketing, which obviously is huge, but also the science of marketing. So really that first part of laying the pipes, really figuring out what we needed. This was an audit that we did to really understand what does best in class look like and how are we going to get there. The second part is really, change management 101. With all of these new platforms, you are going to need to transform your people and your processes and how you work. And this is one piece I can tell you, don't underestimate how hard this is going to be. Change management, it was something else I didn't have a lot of experience in, and now I feel like I have a PhD in it. You really need to rally the troops if you're going to transform how you work. If you're going to bring a new method like Agile into marketing, and you're going to move away from processes that people feel have always worked for years and years and streamline them out and have people work differently, then you really better define why you're doing that and what's in it for them and where are they going to land in whatever this new thing is. That's really important. But we knew that this was more than just technology. This is a transformation of people, processes, and platforms. And then the third part is, you got to put some wins on the board. Anyone who's been on this journey knows that if you're spending a lot of money over the course of time, these technologies don't set themselves up overnight. These are multi-year projects, and they cost a lot of money. And you don't necessarily see the ROI right away. You make a lot of promises and say it's coming, but you really got to figure out what are the little wins you can put on the board along the way. And then you really need to manage expectations at every corner. At TD Ameritrade, a lot of our investments are only given out in quarterly increments. So we are forced into a higher accountability to make sure that we're putting those wins on the board. And I will tell you, it's it adds a lot of rigor and it adds a lot of deck wear and a lot of number crunching, but it's really worth it. It created a lot of discipline in the work that we did. And now we're at the process where we're really looking to scale the results of the money that we have invested to date.
I guess a couple things to recap. The things that stood out to me in a lot of cases was the mindset of the individuals that were involved in this process, including your CEO, this idea of speaking a common language, which is around business value, and then ultimately holding yourselves accountable in this process. I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's really, the whole notion of a growth mindset is very, very important, and you need it at all levels of the company. Especially when you are proud of the work that you've done, the legacy that you have. You sometimes worry that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think one of the things I love about the culture of TD Ameritrade is that we are always pushing ourselves, no matter how well we are doing, no matter how good we think our marketing is or our talent is, we're always trying to push for better. And that for a long time was the mantra of our culture and really continues to be. Okay, so on this next slide, this was the game changer. This was something that, I wouldn't have dreamed would have been possible when we started on this journey, given where we were starting and the relationship between marketing and technology. This is really around an operating model. As I mentioned, we had a new CMO, we had a new CIO. They understood each other. They got along. The CMO understood that, it takes a long time to set up new technologies. We have to be patient as marketers. And the CIO understood that if we help marketing create these better capabilities, they're going to be more effective marketers, and our customers are going to be happier, and we're going to just grow our business. Marketing really is a growth engine for the company through the use of technology and data. And really, the notion was this concept of a marketing technology office, where you've really got two halves, like we say on this tech-savvy marketers and marketing-savvy technologists. But really, what the key thing was, they were dedicated. We needed an army of marketing technologists that really focused on marketing technology, as opposed to a model where you had more of a bench model and, hey, we've got some resources available that aren't working on features for the trading platforms. Let's have them come over and help out marketing. These are marketers that, these are technologists that really had to understand how the marketers were going to use the technologies. Because again, it's one thing that if you're a technology resource and you just kind of take a ticket and you say, okay, I'm going to build this thing and I'm going to just give it to them. We went further. We said, make sure you understand how we're going to use this and how these tools are going to drive value. And and then marketers who really understood, just how hard it is for technology to get stood up and to work with data, really create that empathy in both directions is how I usually describe it. And really, the most important part is don't look at it as two separate teams, but look at it as one team that is accountable for the results. As I mentioned earlier, like this is not about if something goes sideways, hey, who did that? That's your fault. No, we are one team, and that is truly how we have built out our marketing technology office. And in some parts of around it, just some of the details around that was, again, bringing Agile over to marketing. So integrating teams that are creating, capabilities for marketing, but having marketers that are actually product owners of these different technologies. Our product owner for our CDP is a marketer, but that marketer works very close with the technology delivery owners. Everybody is embedded together as one. And even pre-COVID, obviously we spent a lot of time collaborating, co-locating when we needed to. We've actually done a very good job of figuring out how to do that virtually without losing too much velocity. It also meant, like as I said, really upscaling our resources. We had program managers and project managers in marketing that had never been exposed to Agile, and getting them certified and getting them trained and embedding them into the projects really gave us a lot more efficiency than we had before. And then last but not least, we have an MTO governance council. This is not a big giant council, and it's not meant to be bureaucratic, but it is there to help us manage our priorities. We have no shortage of things that come to the MTO where people want something, and we only have so much time and so many resources and so many dollars. We have to do a rigorous, continuous prioritization. And I think one of the nicest things about Agile, surprisingly, was it really helped us get better at prioritization. Every company I've ever worked at, prioritization is almost like, in the top 3 struggles. And I'm not saying we've solved it by any means, but we've certainly gotten a lot better at it. And believe me, we've had to become more nimble. If you look just even in the last 8 to 12 months, we've had, commission rates drop to 0. We've had 0 interest rates. Think of how that impacts our forecasts and our revenue targets and all of the promises that we made for all the investments that we're looking to spend money on. And then, of course, COVID. COVID is another thing that's just we've had to really change up our approach. So having that nimbleness, having that ability to reprioritize and pivot as much as we need to, it's really, it's an operating model that's serving us really, really well.
So I have a few questions here. Just right off the top of my head, the governance council, like what are the individuals or roles that are within that council? Different functions, et cetera, just curiosity.
Okay, so it's myself and my counterpart in technology, and it is folks like Deanna and Aaron. We also have, what we will do is, and then my counterpart also has some directs that will participate, and that's the core council. It's really not a lot of people. It's really the leadership team of the marketing side of the MTO and the leadership team of the technology side of the MTO. And then we will bring people into our different governance council sessions based on whatever the topics du jour are. If we're debating whether this should be a priority or that should be a priority, we may bring in additional people from marketing to help make the case. But what's nice is it gives marketing a lot more control than it had. So we have all of these resources, and if we ask technology what's more important, they will say, well, you tell us what's more important. We're going to work on what you tell us is going to drive the most value. And really, that's how we do a lot of our prioritization, is what is going to drive the most value. And of course, there are the non-negotiables when things like CCPA hit. We just have to do that. So there's always going to be a bucket of those things as well. But that's what the governance council does. And
I think just to add to that, I think what's been really key, and this is, I think, helpful in the rest of Deanna's world and kind of the rest of my world, is that we have great relationships across our enterprise, right? So we're very close to the business needs, whether that's what are client service concerns of the last couple months, right? What's happening in the new account acquisition space, which anyone's seen has been crazy the last few months, right? So I think that's that feels an important need of being so close to this to know how to prioritize and pivot, right? That we're not just, and we'll get into this bit of capabilities, not just launching capabilities to check a box, launching capabilities that the business needs, right? So that's been I think a key piece that we've gotten a lot of benefit out of.
Aaron, thank you. That's exactly the question I was going to ask around, the third circle could effectively be some of the business units that you work alongside and support. The other question I had for you directly, actually, just because of your tenure with the company is, how would you say things have changed, for you in this working environment from where you started to this completely new process? Like, how would you describe your experience?
Yeah, I mean, as Chris, very clearly stated, I think having just partnership on the technology side of speaking a shared language of why a CMS is important, right? What's the benefits of a CDP instead of, I think, and again, this is partly, I think, some org structure issues we had before where you kind of had to beg and plead to have a thoughtful conversation around CMS, right? To have a thoughtful conversation around data needs for marketing. I think just, having richer discussions with a shared interest on the other side of the house has been, really fulfilling and effective.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, before I pass it over to Deanna, so, we have a roadmap, we have our operating model, we've got the support we need from the top, a lot of those things you surveyed before. We've got space to now work pretty unencumbered. This is what I would call, we've created the conditions, we need to be successful. And now it's about the work that needs to be done. Pass that to Deanna.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in here. So with as we look at our capability set, as you've heard me say, we had some pockets, some probably fits and starts in some foundational places, but those were centered in, and again, probably certain journeys or a certain part of our org and their website, but it was not a consistent experience for our clients, right? So as Deanna came on board, really helped us make that pivot to furthering those capabilities.
Thanks, Aaron. And I guess what I would say too is, and Aaron has alluded to this, is that we were sort of an acquisition machine. And I think a lot of our initial capabilities, right, our CMS, digital analytics, offer management, and e-commerce for online opening were really strong and mature. But what we realized was that we needed to address sort of that full client life cycle. That was a key part of what we learned in the initial sort of strategy planning. And in order to do that, we had to figure out sort of, what are the gaps that needed to be filled. And those were clearly in the area of data, right? If we're going to speak to you as a client now, not as an anonymous prospect, we need to know better sort of who you are, right? How are you transacting with us? What are your preferences? What are your behaviors, right? So that we can really get to relevancy. So we, expanded our tag management, added a CDP, sort of upskilled, if you will, our campaign orchestration. And we really needed to add in that real-time decisioning and arbitration, because I think Chris alluded to this earlier. It's gotten a lot more complex rather than managing, the sort of performance, if you will, on a single channel basis. We had to really put that customer in the center and manage to sort of their overall journey. So those were the things that sort of we realized that we needed to stand up, and we prioritized them by really understanding the business strategy and what we called were sort of initial sort of mega journeys, if you will. Like, what were the things that were really important to nurture? Getting our clients to progress through sort of a transactional pipeline, nurturing their own personal learning with our engagement content and our tools, because that's a big asset of TD Ameritrade, and we needed to be able to leverage those more. And also, too, we didn't have just a digital mindset, right? We needed to be able to think about, who are those top clients and where do we hand them off to sales? Or where can we make something easier or more efficient so we get sort of that cost efficiency if you will, in savings in what we were doing, and we had sort of, metrics sort of around those things. So once we sort of identified sort of the capability needs that we had, right, we created a broader roadmap, and we've been sort of visualizing that roadmap from our technology ecosystem as a house, if you will, for sort of quite some time now. And, in order to really sort of be successful, we needed to be relevant to our clients, right, and enable the personalization that gets us to relevancy. And, in doing that, we'll get to greater business value as well. So sort of, no surprise, right, data capture and quality was really our foundation. And I would argue that with the house analogy, it's bigger than that, right? It's our electrical wiring that informs both our insights and our activation. And we needed to take that, right, and bring that to our experiences. So we had our marketing client profile, applying that to content management and our sales and our sales enablement, right? And then even in doing that, being able to do real-time decisioning sort of across those things. Because we might have multiple relevant journeys for our clients. So how do we put them on the best journey? And I would say sort of the last piece on sort of making that transition from more sort of calendarized towards one-on-one is being mindful that it's not just a marketing play, right? We had to connect and be relevant to sales, service, and sort of across our digital channels. And, when we looked at success, I think we're really pleased to say that, this house has finally been built, right? But we certainly did not look at our success measures and KPIs relative to just sort of standing up new technology. We certainly did do that on a quarterly basis. As Chris mentioned, we had what we call OKRs, right, that we needed to demonstrate sort of, percent complete as part of the Agile process every week at both a product level and a program level. We were looking at, are we red, are we yellow, are we green, and why, right? But also we needed to look more broadly than that. For the tools that we democratized, like sales enablement, we really needed to look at adoption. We also looked at the scale, of the clients that we were able to reach in a more sort of behavior-based or data-driven way, right, as opposed to a more calendarized way. Obviously, like any good marketers, we looked at sort of client engagement and conversion. Those are always sort of, early reads and wins. But, the main focus, obviously, ultimately, on a program of this scale is our money metrics, right? How much incremental revenue are we driving? How much revenue that will persist over time? Are we saving money or avoiding costs, right? All these things, have come together to really sort of to deliver the success that we've realized as a team. And I think that sort of, loops back to sort of the key thing is that it really is a team effort. And, it's without those sort of terrific teams, we would not be really in the place that we are. So I'll turn it sort of back to Chris to just elaborate a bit more.
Even before, Chris, you get into some of the results that took place, I mean, what was more complicated when you think about capabilities in the house that you built? Was it the foundational aspects and getting that data quality accurate and correct, getting everyone to have a common understanding of the data that's coming out of Adobe Analytics and to trust it? Or is it for the furthest end of the spectrum of those capabilities that you had, which is the offer arbitration, real-time responses? Is it the more complex stuff, or is it getting that foundation right and everyone aligned to it?
I mean, I think our foundation was pretty solid, Chris. I think it was, as we got to sort of, the decisioning piece. because we're, even trying to figure out, the first use cases where we were arbitrating against, modeled propensity versus behavior, when we had to put a stake in the sand and say sort of where's the cutoff, right? At a certain point, you have to sort of, make that decision. And obviously that's reading across, a number of data sources, sort of both about their clients, about their behaviors, and sort of multiple systems. So it really had sort of more integration and connectivity than some of the other things.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I think I just want to close this out just by saying, it's great that Deanna, Aaron, and I have an opportunity to speak to all of you today about this. This is a journey that long precedes me and Deanna, dates back to, Aaron, probably longest tenured in marketing, certainly on the panel here. But there are hundreds of other marketers and technology folks that have made this journey possible. We are a cog of a much, much larger wheel, and none of this would be possible without everybody up and down the chain. I will say, having that senior level buy-in and support was really the big game changer. Having tried similar types of transformation projects, you can try to do them from the bottom up with a grassroots coalition of the willing. You only get so far if you do not have that level of support. And that includes not just, our CMO and our CIO. That's our entire senior operating committee. That's our CEO. That is everybody from our finance folks who we meet with every quarter to show what we've done lately for them. It takes everybody, right down to our most junior level people, and that it includes everybody across marketing, not just the technology folks, but our planners, our creative studio, our brand folks. Everybody has contributed to this journey. There's no marketer that doesn't have some kind of a technology need, so we really get to touch the whole organization. And of course, all the partnerships that Aaron mentioned, just outside of technology and marketing, sales and service, and it's been a hard journey. I'm not going to pretend that it's been easy, and I'm also, I don't want to suggest that we never fell down and stumbled or failed, but we learned, and we learned from things that didn't work, and that required us to do a lot of experimentation along the way that we still do to this day. But again, if you can build a team of marketers and technologists that really understand one another and have empathy for what each team does, and if you tie it together with accountability and this real belief, a true belief that you are one team, you can really drive some great results. And like I said, we are just entering the stage where we're bringing a lot of this together, and want to really double down on the business results side. As I said, it's a long tail. You spend a lot of money. You got to put singles on the board. That's what we've been doing. But that's the stage we're entering. We've had 2 really great quarters. I think we were very happy that with all the volatility that we've seen in the market, that we were better prepared by having some of these new capabilities stood up when we did. And we just have to continue taking advantage of that for as long as we persist as a brand.
The question I had for you to bring into this conversation is the legal compliance. You're a regulated company, FINRA in particular. The stories that I hear a lot of the times are different modes of working with legal and compliance counterparts. Sometimes there's a degree of education around even the technology that's being brought in itself, down to the individual capabilities, what data is being used. How do you bring that function along with you in this journey?
So I just want to say for sure, sorry, our legal and compliance folks are some of the best people I've worked with. They understand, and they take the time to understand and listen to what we need. We bring them in early, we bring them in often, we embed them if we need to in the work that we do. I will tell you, whereas compliance and legal tends to be a barrier or a hindrance or an impediment in other companies, we see them as true partners in all of the work that we do. And Deanna, you could probably add a lot of color to that because both you and Aaron work with them on a more daily basis than I do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chris. And I think that speaks to sort of the collaborative spirit of TDA sort of generally, that we really do feel that. Erin and I meet bi-weekly with our legal and privacy partners to discuss and address things, CCPA, GDPR, IDFA, how do we balance both the need for digital identity, with the need to be, appropriately, compliant from a privacy perspective. And, we have a great team of technologists that help us out with that. Our tag management is very robust. We've got some other technologies that really sort of help enable us in that area. So I think we're fortunate.
Erin, anything to add?
Nope, Deanna nailed it.
Okay. So if we have, in the time we have left, if there are any questions from the audience of anything that you've heard, any questions for any of the speakers individually, how they work together, feel free to just put them right into the chat pod. Oh, okay, we do have a question. We have a lot of questions. Okay, so let's start with identity management. Where does it reside within the house?
So identity management, I would say, is a couple things. We partner sort of like I said, very closely from a digital data perspective. So we govern some of that from a tag management perspective. Some of the, resolution, from an identity perspective also sort of sits within our CDP. So it's sort of a combination, if you will. We're obviously very mindful, of the changes that have already happened in, Safari and Firefox and soon to be Chrome. So we're, trying to figure out how to sort of best tackle that from a first-party perspective. But it's our CDP and our tag management that helps facilitate that.
There's a question, and I swear I didn't put this in myself. Just what Adobe applications are you using? Wasn't me.
Well, let's see. We have Adobe Experience Manager. We've got Adobe Target. We've got Adobe Audience Manager. We've got AEM Assets.
Analytics, of course.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, Adobe Analytics.
Then, yep, and I think a previous, another Adobe webinar, which I'd recommend going back and watch, we're dabbling more and more into forms from our logged in secure experience with Megan here, and they've been great partners.
So you're really using our technology as an integrated stack across your team, so that's great. We do have a question. Again, we can go back to the capabilities, but let me just do that actually, just as a visual reference for this question. But there's a question around, I know there's a whole strategic implication, but where if you're a beginner and you're just getting started in the journey, you are on the tail end of that spectrum of immature. Where do you start? Is it, and it might not even be capability. I mean, you have your 3-layer cake with the organizational structure and operating models, but where would you start if you were a beginner?
Well, I guess I have a bias.
But if you have different answers to this, please.
I mean, I will say you have to have a good data foundation, so digital analytics and tag management, so that you can both, activate efficiently through tag management and understand how you're doing, right? And how things are performing and what's not. So that would be my answer, but I've got some other favorites in there as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think right there along with the foundation would be content management. I mean, specifically around can we control and tailor and maybe even just slightly target what someone sees, experiences, right? Doesn't mean you need to be super advanced on the personalization maturity scale, but if you can, call it good old-fashioned merchandise, a better experience for someone, that's a huge start. Combine that with knowing a little bit more about their behavior and what they're doing in their visit. Great start.
Yeah,
if you're really
sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry, if you're at the real beginning of this journey, I mean, I think you I'll take it back even, one step back, which is you got to build that burning platform for why you're going to be doing any of this work that you want to do. What is the why behind the investments you're about to ask for? What are they going to do? I think this is where the executive storytelling part becomes really, really critical. I don't think I've ever started any kind of a transformation project that doesn't start with a vision, and really, really tells the story of that vision and makes people feel it and understand why this journey is going to be important for our clients, for our company, for our bottom line. And we've had to do quite a lot of that over the last 5 years.
Did you have conflicts, and how did you arbitrate them between roadmaps of the marketing side and the technology side?
Well, I can certainly talk to some of that. I mean, the conflicts are generally, like I said, we kind of set forth the priorities for the technologists. They're going to, if they need to pivot from one priority to another, they're able to do that. I think it's more the work we need to do, the work that folks like Aaron need to do, when somebody wants to make a change to Ameritrade.com and having to understand, there's only so many people, so many resources, how does that work get prioritized? And again, a lot of it comes down to, is it work we just have to do because it's some sort of a compliance or legal requirement? Or, are we looking at, what value is it going to bring? I look at the retail online account opening team, and, they prioritize their roadmap, looking at, how can we drive our pull-through rate, the rate with which we pull people through the application, the online application with the least amount of friction. We can put a number on what a 1% increase in that pull-through rate means. And they can look and prioritize their work based on what each new function or feature or thing that we may do, what kind of impact that will have on the pull-through rate. And we've got the ability to do the attribution to see specifically how our work is impacting that pull-through rate. And it makes for conversations that are, I think, more meaningful when there is a conflict over, should we work on this or should we work on that? It does require business partners to do a little bit more work in terms of showing business value that their things will bring. But with this rigorous prioritization process, we can continually revisit, and we don't commit to things that are 12 months long. If we need to pivot on a dime, we're able to do that.
Great. Data-driven, oriented towards business value. There's several key questions here, so we might have to do a bit of a speed round because I want to make sure I answer all of them. I know that you looked at our CD capability, but the question is more about the CDP that you have and its relationship with the data management platform. How does that work is the question. The interoperability between the two.
Chris, we keep more robust information about our clients, within the CDP, who you are, how you've transacted with us, what your preferences are, what maybe segment we've put you in, but the DM piece, it's still at this juncture is easier from us from a speed to market and an activation standpoint, and it does let us push out into the broader digital ecosystem. But it is often part of, when we have a new journey, we end up getting together both the owner of the DMP and the CDP and tag management and really sort of figure out sort of what the best course forward might be for that particular journey.
While you're
specific for on-site personalization, we still use a combination of both, right? I think they are complementary as we're getting further into kind of refining how we use the DMP, as we develop more and the team produces some cool new features with CDP. That might eat into the DMP a little bit, but for us, for on-site personalization, we're finding a need for both, which is nice. And as Deanna said, sometimes that gets more into whether it's speed, whether it's, just the flow of the data, what might make more sense for a certain journey or a certain campaign. But for us, it's still both.
Two more questions. One, analysis paralysis. Do you suffer from that, Deanna, or your team? And how do you derive insights from all of the data that you're getting?
I would say that generally we haven't suffered from analysis paralysis. I think it's really key to align on what your KPIs are up front, right? And what you're aligned to those KPIs, really staying, focusing on them and continue to report out on them. That doesn't mean we don't dig into some things on an ad hoc basis to get to greater understanding, but I don't think that's generally been a concern.
Yeah, and I think a key thing is having whether it's marketers or data analysts be able to look at that through the lens of the business. I mean, it sounds obvious. Got to know your business and what those data points mean.
That's a good point, Aaron. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. So closing question, and each of you will answer this. I'll start with you, Aaron, then make our way down. Is in this journey, in this part of this transformation, what was like an aha moment for each of you? So the moment's like, hey, either it could have been through, the use of the technology, through analysis, through segments that you've created, segments that you've tested, working with one another, whatever it is, a moment where like, oh, wow, okay, that was a real aha moment. You can impart upon the audience. Here we go.
Yeah, I probably gave this answer before, but I think, again, we have some great partners on the technology side where we have thoughtful, rich discussions. Doesn't mean we always agree, but I think we're actually talking shop about the things that we should be talking about and discussing and solving for that, I think back at times was just not even possible to have those discussions. So that's probably a key moment.
Deanna, 15 seconds.
And I guess for me, Chris, it was, I felt that initially when I got here, the conversations were all about capability build. Mm-hmm. And, we really needed to start talking up and educating that it's about transforming the organization. And that's what it's going to take. It's marketing that drives revenue, not capability.
Right. Chris, last thoughts.
All right, the aha moment was probably more recently where we started to really see everything come together, and we said, oh my God, we're really doing this. This is happening. Like this personalization at scale and having all these tools. Like it's not just words. We're doing it. Like it's here. It was a big moment.
There was one question left. We'll make sure to answer it later. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. Please thank the TD Ameritrade panel today. So having three of you, it was excellent to get all your different perspectives. We appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. Thanks again, and we'll see you at the next web seminar.
Great. Thanks for having us, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today. Ladies and gentlemen, before you log off, if you can just take a quick moment to fill out our closing polls. We do appreciate your feedback. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.